finish the Mishnah.
No, it's so the next Gemara as well.
Oh, it's in the more. All right.
Shloishim at Beis Zel Kavza. It's about halfway through the page. First one line is Shloishim at Beis. Shloishim at Beis Zel Kavza says you have three coins piled up on top of each other. That is something unique, and therefore the rule is chayev lahachras. Right, you must announce it, and obviously return it. Like we explained, the general principle is if you're chayev lahachras, you're chayev to return it. Yesterday we saw a few exceptions, but generally speaking, if you're obligated to return it, you're obligated to announce it as well. Amar of Yitzchak Magdalal, v'husha asiyin kimigdolim. It has to be built like a fort. What is the definition of built like a fort? There are three different coins. There's a $50 coin, there's a quarter, and then there's a penny. Right, so they're sort of stacked, and they don't, they will last that way. And that's considered a simon. The guy finds money that's spread out, he's allowed to keep it. However, if the money is asin kimigdolim, the money is piled up, right? The fattest coin on the bottom, less fat coin, and then the narrowest one on the top, right? Like a fort, which is wide on the bottom and narrow on top. So chayav lahachras, then you do have to announce it. What does it mean as seeing kimigdolim? Shloishim at Beis Zel Kavza. Three coins, one on top of another, with like we said, the widest on the bottom. So Gemara says hagu for kasha. This doesn't make any sense. Amrit we're saying if you find money that's spread out, in other words, there's no just find dollar bills in the street, then you're allowed to keep it. What does that mean? So mifuzaris means we should really try to dispense with the notion that of cash, right? Because cash is maybe 300 years old or something. So we're talking here about coins. So the coins are spread out individually, meaning that the coins are on top of each other. So then chayav lahachras, that's no longer, the money's not spread out anymore. Now it's stacked. So you should have to announce it. Aim is safe. Let's look at the end of the brayso. Asin kimigdolim chayav lahachras mishlach v'shalchufi harei l'shalai. The end of the brayso, however, says that no, it can't just be that they're stacked. They have to be stacked in a very specific way. Widest on the bottom, narrower and narrower. And it has to be at least three coins. The fact that some coins are lying on top of another doesn't change the definition of mifuzaris. Mifuzaris means spread out. They're still considered spread out, even if one is halfway on top of another.
You know, a song at it. Three coins in the front. Yeah.
So Gemara says, Tana kol one second. So Gemara says, no, Tana kol she'ain asin kimigdolos mifuzaris karlo. In other words, he says mifuzaris does not literally mean spread out. It means if it's not stacked like a building, like this fort, he calls that mifuzaris, even if they're partially on top of one another. Amr Chanina, so Chanina says, Chanina says it has to be that the three coins are from three different kings. Now, in English, what this means, practically speaking, is that a coin of a king is a currency. I don't know if anyone's been to Yeshua on Bitcoin maybe 3 years ago. It's on YouTube if you want to watch it. Where we discussed this at length. We actually discussed a bunch of Gemara's and Metzia there at length. But one of the key ideas that's very important to understand when you're trying to evaluate how to define a currency is that, I think I may point this down when we learned Dina de Malchus Dina. You have to follow the law of the land. So the Rambam is a very interesting definition. How do you know if the guy is a king or if he's an imposter? He has a yunta, or coup. How does one define what is a legitimate king versus an illegitimate king? So he says very simple. He says if the currency is used in the country, if it's issued a currency that people use, then you have to listen to him. If he has a currency that nobody uses, or he doesn't have a currency in the first place, then he's a junta. He's not a real king. In other words, the Rambam really is saying here is that the currency is so important to defining whether somebody is legitimate, that is the yardstick that we're using. So when you talk about shalosh malachim, it means that a currency, it means three different currencies basically. Three kings means three currencies. But if it's of one king, you don't need to announce it. So Gemara says, I don't understand the difference. What's the scenario? If they're made like forts, meaning that they're stacked widest to narrowest, then even if it's one king, you should also have to return it. And if it's not made like forts, then who cares if it comes from three different kings? In other words, the key feature that we've seen until now is that it's built like a fort. What does it mean it's built like a fort? In case it's not clear to anybody. Why is that significant? Because it tells you exactly.
They translate it as a tower.
A tower. Yeah, but the idea is that it was put there intentionally, and then that it's a simon. Okay. In other words, the rule for this is that it has to be one king like three kings, meaning, how does that work? One second. We do Mציעא. Okay, so basically it's the widest hatah is the bottom one. Mציעא, the middle one is iluya on top of it. The Mציעא, and the smallest one is on top of the middle one. The Amrina, we say anuchi that he placed it there intentionally. Let's say there's a stack of 3/4. Even though they're piled one on top of another, you're allowed to keep it. Amar, we presume it's remuye isrami bahadadadinafon. It's so to speak, he was carrying a roll of quarters, and it happens to be fell down, and sure enough, 3/4 ended up getting stacked. Okay, that is the opinion of Rev Chanina. Rav Chanina, yeah. However, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Afil Shemelech Echad Nami Machris. Rabbi Yochanan says Afil Shemelech Echad Nami Machris. Even from one king, you also announce. Meaning, what does one king mean? It means all the coins are quarters. 3/4 stacked up, you announce. One by Machris. What exactly is the number that you're looking for? So Gemara says minyan. You basically the simon here could be the number. So how many coins are there? Right? It could be 2, 3, whatever it is. That's the amount of coins that you announce. So Gemara says, my area tilsa afilu treinami. Why does it have to be 3 coins? Afilu treinami, even if it's 2 coins, you also have a simon. So Amravina tiva machras. Okay, so basically the idea is as follows. What do? You announce, I found coins. So now, what's the minimum amount of coins? 2, plural, right? It's a minimum of 2. So 2 is not a simon because that's basically what the guy's saying. But anything above 2 would be a simon because and you don't know how many coins. It could be 100 coins, it could be 3 coins. So the number would qualify as a simon, anything above 2. Boy, Rav Yirmiyah. Okay, so right, remember Rav Yirmiyah. Rav Yirmiyah with the famous questions. So Rav Yirmiyah has a bunch of questions that relate to other arrangements of money. So kashir, interesting word, kashir. Shir is a circle.
Yeah.
It's interesting word. Shir also means a song, right?
Shir.
But a shir is a circle. So you find kashir. You find the coins in a circle. Mahu, what's the story? Kashura, it's found in a line, a row, or I think next this would have a column, whatever. Mahu, kichatsuva mahu. Kichatsuva is like a trivet. So you look at the pictures. Look at the pictures. The old school trivet had 3. It was a tripod.
Oh, it's a tripod. Okay.
Tripod. So it had three equidistant. Okay, that's the chatsuva. Mahu, kisula mahu. If it's like a ladder, okay. So basically, this means that sort of the coins straddle each other going up. So it's not like a migdal is a tower, meaning widest on bottom, narrowest on top. Kisulam is where the coins are piled one on top of another, but not necessarily evenly, or not necessarily in different sizes.
This is like steps.
Like steps. There we are. That's a much more intuitive word. Yeah.
Position, please, Rabbi.
Second to bottom line of 25a. First one line. Pshoit mehal chada. At least let's answer one of them. The Amr of Nachman Amr Rabbi Vua kol shilu machnas lakisem enem b'nayitlam b'vasachas chayav l'hachros. Okay. In other words, if you put a sliver of wood, usually like a kisem is usually a toothpick, and you'd be able to take them at once, meaning that these things can be grabbed together. So then that is considered chayav l'hachros. You have to announce it. So therefore, the sulam, the steps, the way the coin, you can grab them all at once, and therefore you'd have to announce it. But Rav Ashi has another question. What about ka'avnei beis kuliyas, like the stones of kuliyas? Kuliyas is an idol. I'm going to translate kuliyas.
Goodness. It's a Roman deity referred to.
Yeah, Roman.
Yeah, it's an idol.
Idol, yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm not quite familiar with the worship of kuliyas, but basically what it is that it's 1, 2, and then one on top.
It's represented by a heap of stones.
Yeah.
Configuration described later in the.
Okay. So what's the story? Is that considered like a tower, like the migdal that we spoke about? Eric, before you came, we said if you find the coins in a migdal is a tower, meaning there's a wide base and a narrow top. At least 3 coins, a narrow, the middle, and narrowest. So then you do have to return it because it was put there intentionally. The question is now, avni beis kuliyas, if you find the coins, there's 1, 2, and there's one on top of them, straddling both bases. Tashma, the Tanya matzah mois mefuzaras, havarei elo shalai. The money is spread out, then you get to keep it. The finder gets to keep it. Avni beis kuliyas, but if he finds the money like the stones of kuliyas, chayav l'hachros, he has to return it. The Elohim avni beis kuliyas, and what exactly are the stones of kuliyas? Achas mikan v'achas mikan, one on each side, v'achas lagabeim, and another one on top. Tana Rabbanon, hamoitzi sela b'shuk u'motz chaveri. Amr shalihu. A guy finds a sela. A sela is a big coin, valuable coin, and his friend comes along and says, "Shalihu, it's mine." And he starts giving him simanim. He says, "Chadoshi, it's brand new." Niroinaisi. There was a king whose name was Niroin. If you remember from Gittin, Niroin was the first general to be sent to destroy Jerusalem. So he says it's a coin from Niroin, Caesar Niroin. Niroinaisi. Shamelach Pliny. It belongs to a specific king. None of these are simanim. Not only that, if the guy wrote, you see some of these people, we can get these dollar bills. It's like to track this dollar bill. Go to this website. It's not a siman. Why is it not a siman? Because maybe you spent it. You wrote your name on the coin. Mark, you wrote your name on the coin. Fine, who cares? Doesn't mean it's yours. You could have easily spent it. Nobody cares. Nobody would mind taking a coin that has your money, that has your name written on it.
It's amazing how many notes have the bills have notes on them.
Fine with notes.
Oh yeah. Oh sure. There is no identifying feature to a matbea. The Amar Duma Afuki Afkom Inish Nafal, maybe you spent it and this belongs to somebody else. So in other words, it's like even if you know the serial number, doesn't make a difference.
If you know the serial number.
Yeah, well, it's pretty impressive, but it could be you spent it. It doesn't prove that it's yours. Okay. Motza achar hagofa. By achar hageder. Okay, so now we find more categories of stuff you have to return. Okay, so these the gofa and the geder are very similar. We're in the Mishnah now on 25b. A gofa and a geder are both fences. A geder is typically made out of stones. A gofa is sort of a wood fence. Or okay, there are guys. Okay, or you found goizles mikusharim. You found a bunch of birds that were tied together. One second. Or you find something in the roads that are in the fields. So what does this mean? These are not, these are like the forest roads. These are not quite, or these are roads that private property allows you to use, but they're not public roads. They're not major thoroughfares. Yeah. And okay, what's the point here? Like, why does this make a difference? The reason is because you presume, let's say, you shouldn't touch it. Why not? Because presumably the owner put it there. Presumably the owner put it there.
Okay.
You find a path in the forest, you find hiking equipment. What does that mean? It means there's a more difficult stretch coming up, so they left their hiking equipment there, right?
But it was something that's not associated like that.
Yeah, but the point is that people would keep things there because it's not entirely unsecure. It's certainly not as unsecure as putting it on Capitol Highway. It's at least more sheltered and there's less people traveling by. Matzah kli ba'ashba, you find a vessel in the garbage. Im mechusa, if the vessel was covered, lo yiga, but you shouldn't touch it. Why shouldn't you touch it? Same reason. The guy here is he's running his drug business in the garbage can. It's clearly he put it there intentionally. It's there for a reason. Just don't touch it. Why would you make him lose it? However, in Megullah, but if it's clearly abandoned there, so then Noitul Machres, you can take it and return it because the owner probably lost it. My timer, what's the reason for this? We say that the loser is not really a loser. He just hid it there. Might not be the best spot to hide it, but it works. However, if you're going to take it, the owner won't find a simon. So therefore, leave it there so that the original owner finds it. So the Gemara says, we spoke about five birds that were tied up together, right? Well, the way that they're tied should be a simon. So the Gemara says, they're tied by their wings, which apparently is a normal thing, because that's how everybody ties the birds. So Gemara says, we'll have a malkum simon. Let the location be a simon. So Amar Rav Ukva Rachama ben Medadin. The birds are sort of, even though they're five and they're tied up together, they can sort of jostle around. So the location can't be a simon because the birds obviously moved around. 1 second. So Gemara says, even Medadin me'alma asu mutarn. 1 second, if they can move around, then who says that they were placed here on the path? Maybe they came from elsewhere. Maybe the 5 chickens danced from the marketplace to the path, right? In other words, and then you can keep it because if a guy loses 5 chickens in the whatever, I'm saying 5 meaning the reason I'm picking a number here is let's presume that the number is meaningless because that's standard unit of chicken sales, right? So in other words, like we said in the past, if there is a standard unit of chicken sales, then the number doesn't become a simon anymore. Okay, so the Gemara says, so basically maybe it came from the marketplace, it would be permitted. So it should be permitted because it danced from the marketplace. So the Gemara says, you're right. It's true, it might have come from the marketplace. But at the same time, it's also possible the guy was on the forest road and he kept his chickens there. And it's a suffix, it's a doubt. Was this placed here or did the chickens dance there? So we don't know. If you have a suffix hinuach, meaning we don't know whether or not the item was placed there, or if it got there on its own, don't touch it. If you did take it, you have no obligation to give it back. So meaning if you find something on the street, you walk down the street, and I was so you occasionally you walk past something, you're not sure, like, did somebody leave it here or did somebody put it here intentionally? Like it could be in between, you find the keys like stuck in the curb. Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
Third option, or is there a chance they're gonna come back looking for that specific place?
So if there's a doubt, you're not sure what you don't know. You don't know. It could be legitimate. It could be it was dropped there. Don't touch it.
But if you do,
Keep it. I'm talking about in public.
please explain the logic
We're
there.
talking in a public. We're talking about in a public place. Because in other words, because if it was lost there, then it's the owner's lost it. He's given up on it, and it's hopeless. The analogy is much better with the chickens. Okay, the chickens either dance there from the marketplace, in which case they're for sure lost, and you can keep them. It's no different than finding the chickens in the marketplace. Nobody really knows whose chickens these are because they dance, they move around.
Yeah.
However, it could be also that they were left there. So don't touch it. If you did take it, however, then the general principle here is in other words, I'm allowed to keep it because if you want to claim that you put it there, well, you can bring the proof. We don't know. It's money. Money, the general principle is the one who's removing it, the one who's taking it, claims it's his, he has to bring the proof.
Mhm.
Well, we have a number of times you run into you're not supposed to do something, but if you do it, you can get away with it.
Yeah. So this principle revolves around Hametz Mechaber El Haraya, meaning that by money we don't the general principle by money is that if the guy who has it in his hand, the possessor, if you want to take it away from him, you have to prove it. So in a certain sense, when the item is there, the chickens are there on the road, it could be that they are in the original owner's possession if they didn't dance there from the marketplace. So in that case, don't touch it because it might be his. But then once it's in your domain, he now has to take it away from you. He has to prove that it's yours. He has to prove to you that he's actually lost and he hasn't given up. And because it's highly unlikely, we say you can presume that there was a yush and you can keep it. Okay, next one. You find this vessel in the garbage. What do you do for a minute? Okay, so you find something tamun. Tamun means hidden. So again, one of the Mishnah say. The Mishnah says if you find something that's covered in the garbage, then you leave it there because you presume it was put there.
Mm-hmm.
However, if it was uncovered, in other words, it was dumped, then you can keep it. It was dumped, or if it looks like it was there by mistake, you would have to return it. This price says no. What's a kli tamun? You find a hidden vessel. What does a hidden vessel kind of indicate to you? It's hitzniya, right? He put it there. He left it there. Where are we? So no machras, you have to announce it. Because the garbage is typically removed. Like we explained, that there's sort of the garbage dump in the landfill, and the garbage dump is moved to the landfill. Okay, so this seems to contradict the Mishnah. So Amar Zvid like Kasha, just said it's not difficult. It depends on what type of vessels we're talking about. Habi kube vikasi. We're talking about how they translate kube here. Barrels and cups. Habi sakini v'hemnik. The other one is sakini is knives, and what do they translate hemnik as?
Metal instrument pointed at both ends used by scribes.
Okay.
One end was split, like the Y.
Got it. Okay, so it's a writing tool. Okay, okay, so let's explain. So the knives and the writing tool, these things are something akin to disposables. Like these things are sent. These things go to the garbage. Okay, 1 second here. Okay, so if you're talking about vessels of value, those things have to be returned. The Bryce that says that if you find them even hidden, 1 second, hold on. I'm sorry. A large barrel or cup, that we can presume was hitzniya. He put it there intentionally. Don't touch it. However, the sakini v'hemnik, the writing materials, The you take it and you announce the writing implement and the knives, you take them and you announce them. So Papa explains, they're both Bryce are talking about barrels and cups. Depends on what type of garbage. If it's a landfill type of garbage, then if he hides something there, he knows he'll be able to come back and get it. But if it's the type of garbage dump that's moved to a landfill, so then once he puts it there, there's always a risk that it might end up in the landfill. He'll have no clue where it is. So in that case, you take it and you announce it.
Manhattan Street on a Monday morning.
What?
Manhattan Street on a Monday morning.
Yeah. If the garbage is going to be carried away to a landfill, so then he's intentionally, throwing it in the garbage. He's getting rid of it. Why do you have to return it? So where it says, we're talking about a garbage that typically isn't moved to a landfill, but then they decided it was too big of a pile. They decided to move it to a landfill. In that case, you take everything out and you give it back to the original owners. Even the things that were put there intentionally, if you leave them there, they'll be taken away to the landfill. So you take them out and you give it back to the original owners. So according to Papa, this makes sense. The whole discussion here is about when the garbage will be collected, basically. That makes a lot of sense. But according to Tzvid, that said it depended on whether it was large items or small items. Why is it so important to know that the garbage is collected? So the Gemara says, "Shekain and derech ashba lefanas la kelam ketanim." The explanation here is that occasionally it happens that it doesn't mean that the garbage is taken away. It means that very often, along with the garbage of the house, these items are lost. Right? So you go to somebody's house and they only have seven forks. The rest of them are. None of them broke. Right? They're all taken out of the garbage. So it happens that with the garbage, sometimes these items are lost, and that's why if you find them, you announce them and you give them back to the owners. Mishnah, bottom of 25b. Matzah begal u'bekoisel yashim. You find stuff in a pile of stones or in an old wall. Harei lo shalai, you're allowed to keep them. Matzah bekoisel chadash. You find the stuff in a new wall. So it depends. So let's say it's a new stone wall. So if it's mechetzi of ulefnim shabal bayis. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's explain. So the guy has a nice stone hedge connecting his, abutting his property and the public thoroughfare. So now the public could be sticking stuff in from one side. He could be sticking stuff in from the other side. So it depends which side you find it. If you find it on the public side, then it's no different than finding it in public. You're allowed to keep it. However, if you find it, unless it was placed there, then you'd have to announce it. If you find it on the side of the private owner, then it belongs to the private owner. Presumably, it's from him.
It all depends on what side you're on.
Yeah, absolutely. If he was renting the house to somebody else, that even if you find it inside the house, it still belongs to the original owner. Yeah. Let me just make sure I have that in front of the Sorry. If he's renting it, it gets kept by the finder. The finder gets to keep it. Okay. Says the Gemara, okay, you find the stuff in a wall, in an old wall, you're allowed to keep it. Why? Because you can say this belongs to the Amorites, meaning those that lived in Israel before the Jews even came in. Yeah. So the Gemara says, "Atu Amor Mitzani Yisrael and Mitzani." Is it the case that only the Amorim, this Canaanite tribe, hides things in walls, like Jews don't do that ever? Rhetorically, so the Gemara says, it's really covered with rust, so it's got to be, it's ancient, and because of that, you're allowed to keep it and presume it doesn't belong to the owner. Because the Chodesh in a new wall, it depends where you find it, in the inside or the outside. So Amar Rashi, Sakina basar kata, v'chitza basar shansei. Okay, if you find a knife, the knife is determined by its handle. In other words, where is the location of the knife? Depending on the handle. And the reason for this is, obviously, anyone who knows how to handle knives knows that you always handle knives with a handle, right? You'd imagine the guy didn't push his knife into the wall, handle first. Right, it was handle second. So therefore, where do we, let's say the knife is a big knife, it goes from the middle, it goes across the middle. It's the handle that determines where which part, if the knife is on the inside or the outside. Okay, kiss is like a wallet, and this wallet, the way these wallets were like tied onto them, and it had what they call schnotze. These are the strings that were used. So the way you grab the wallet was by the strings. So the strings determine the location of the wallet. If the strings are on the outside, it's the outside. If the strings are on the inside, it's the inside. Okay. The Mishnah says that if it's in the inner half, it belongs to the homeowner. If it's in the outer half, then he can keep it. Let's see, let's see if this is talking about either a wallet or a knife. Let's see where the handle is or the ropes are. So Gemara says, the Mishnah is not referring to these types of vessels, but udra vinaska. We're talking about either about felts, so there's some sort of material, or naska. Naska is either plates or it's bullion, like bars of silver. So these things, there's no front and back, and depends on where the item lies. If it lies on the inside or if it lies on the outside. Tana, let's say it goes from in to outside. The whole wall is filled with these bullion bars. So then cholkin, you split it. What's on the inside is owned by the original owner, is owned by the homeowner. What's on the outside is owned by whoever finds it. So the Gemara says pshita, that seems to be obvious. The chiddush here is that it's slanty. So the bullion bars are on a slant. They're not level. They're slanty. So now the concern is maybe they were put in public and they slid down inside to the other guy's property, to the private property. So therefore, you would argue that the guy who's standing in the public domain argues that it's all his because it all started in the public and it slid down into the private. No, that's not an argument. I would think it sort of slid down. That it could be it did, but it wouldn't make a difference. The halacha remains that you would split it equally. Split it equally meaning split it along the line, and whatever is on the line is split equally. Okay, 46.